Hi guys, Kandi Toy Box here. Today you will need some perler supplies. You're going to need perler beads, a pegboard, an iron, and some parchment paper. And I wanted to give you my perler tips, so maybe this will help some of you guys out. And if you know any, you should share them in the comments and help everyone else out. Okay, so I also have a toothpick here. This goes with one of my tips I'm going to show you. I already made the outline right here. So at this point, you would want to stop the video if you're going to make this tutorial and get your outline. So go ahead and stop the video, get your outline, and then come back and I'll show you what to do. So my first tip is, instead of putting one bead down at a time, if you take a few in your hands and you just drop them down, this whole area is going to be black. This only works when you have like a large amount of the same color in an area. So what I do is I try to fill this up. If you knock part of your outline out, it's okay, you can fix it. Just try to be careful. So this whole part's black, and I'm just picking up a few at a time and I'm dropping them where the black goes. Okay, once you have quite a few in there, you're going to take your toothpick and you just gently move them, and they'll stand up in their peg, on their peg. It does work. Well, I'm holding my camera so I can't show you, but you can use like one of your fingers to help guide them, because sometimes when you drop them in like this, you'll get one stuck in between pegs, and then it'll be hard to move other ones around. So you would just take your finger and but I promise you, this saves me a lot of time. Well, when I have two fingers, but and then once you get all of them standing up, you're going to go through and then just fill in the gaps so you don't have too many. Just give that a try and let me know if you think it's faster. But like I said, when you have two hands, it's a little easier because you can have your finger there to guide it while you're flipping it up with the toothpick. I'm going to go ahead and fill in this part, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay guys, this is what it looks like after you have all the black filled in. And I have my camera on a tripod so I can show you what I meant by using your finger to help guide the beads. So this last part is all white, so we're going to take a pinch of white and just drop them in there. And we're going to get our toothpick. And what I do is I'll have my finger help, like tuck them in there. Hopefully you can see that. It's hard for me to see at this angle. But it should move fairly quick. Or I take my finger and pick one up if it's not close enough to a peg area. To me, this is faster, but you'll just have to try it and let me know what you think. Okay, so now we just have to fill in these little sections, and I will put these in one by one because there's not too many, and it's just easier for me to just fill in those little spots. And I don't know if anyone does this, but I put a small amount in my hand and I put them as close to the perler as possible. That way you don't have to keep going back for one by one. That cuts some time too. Okay. Now it's finished and we're ready to iron it. So I'm going to take this into the other room. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, I have everything ready to go to iron this. You're going to want to put your parchment paper over, and don't use wax paper. That will stick to the perler, so make sure you get a good quality parchment paper. And also you want to make sure that there's no creases. I know when you buy perler beads, they come with a piece of this, but it's folded up. And what happens is if there's any crease or fold, when you go to iron it, that will be on there. So you won't have a smooth design. And what I like to do once your iron's heated up is I like to melt it just until they're all fused together. So, and I do it very, very lightly. I don't put any pressure. I found if you put pressure on it, sometimes it will lift up the beads while you're melting and mess up your design, which is a pain in the butt. But just lightly go in circles back and forth just until they're all fused together, not melted all the way, just all the circles. You can see because the paper will stick to it, and I'll show you here in a minute. Okay, so you can see that they're all connected. At this point, I will take it and remove it from the pegboard and finish ironing it. The reason I do that is because I like to have my perlers melted all the way on one side. So that means all the holes closed for the most part. Sometimes, they melt different every time, but I like to try to get it nice and melted on one side. Because if you don't melt them all the way, they will break. And there's a fine line too, because if you over melt them, then the image will get distorted. So you have to keep an eye on it and constantly move it around. So you can, you can look, and if there's an area that looks like it needs more attention, then you use that. So this looks good enough for me. I'm going to bring you closer so you can see. You see how there's hardly any holes left, and it looks pretty smooth for the most part. Now at this point, I know, because I do this too, you want to rip the paper off so you can melt the other side. I don't recommend that. I recommend waiting until this cools off, because something that happens is if you take the paper off too soon, you'll have creases or different imperfections on it. So if you want this nice and smooth, let this cool off. And you can tell when it cools off because it'll start to rise up from the paper, and the paper will come off of it itself. So once I feel like it's cooled off enough, I will take the paper off and then flip it over. So I'm going to let this cool for a minute, and then I'll be back to show you how I melt the other side. Okay guys, this is what the front looks like. Now we need to melt the back. So you're going to lay this down, and I'm just doing it on a counter. And same thing, you want to do circles. And we're not going to melt this like we did on the other side. This side, you just want to make sure all the circles are connected. Kind of like before we took it off the pegboard, but maybe just a little bit longer. And you want to keep it moving. Okay, this looks good to me. I'll bring it closer. So I didn't completely melt it, but all the paper stuck and all the circles connected. Now, at this point, you can take the paper off while it's still hot. The reason why is because you want this to cool off on this side. So this is the front side. Because as this cools, it's going to come up a bit. And if you wanted to add this to a cuff, what I like to do is while it's cooling, you can bend this. So it'll have like a round, kind of like a round shape. So when you put it on a cuff, it'll sit nice. You can bend these after they're cooled off too, but it's just a little easier. But if this was for a necklace, you know, you would leave it flat. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I'll see you next time.